let's get started. Again, thank you so much for signing on live to the Grow Your Occupancy webinar. This quarter, March 2024, I'm Julie Podewitz, CEO and founder. Today, I'm really excited about our topic. And it's the title is How Tech-Forward Resident Experiences Impact Sales and Occupancy. And one of the reasons I'm excited about this topic is because tech, as soon as the word in tech into the verbiage, right? And put that word tech out there, I think some of us go, oh, I don't know. Does this really apply to me? I don't know tech, or I don't want to, or I'm not tech savvy, or well, I don't know if our residents are, and I don't know if we're ready for that. And again, I thank you all for leaning in and learning how critically important differentiation is in our business and in this competitive world that we live in selling senior living and providing enough opportunities for potential residents to come and tour with us. That experience and how we differentiate ourselves from one another is critically important. And how the use of tech, it's 2024, we live in a tech world, how having tech and how technology really is a differentiator and how it can be a differentiator. Our goal is always during our webinars and trainings that Grow Your Occupancy for you to take something away, something doable, memorable, and useful, right? So we will be providing as much content as possible and ideas, concepts, and things that we feel are most beneficial to you all. So enough about me. I'm going to introduce to you Mary Giangrasse. She is the COO of Icon, and Icon is sponsoring our webinar today. We're very grateful for you and excited to welcome you. So welcome, Mary.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having us. We're really excited for today for all the reasons that you mentioned. It's such a passionate topic for me, as we tend to go into the communities very often and work directly with residents on the technology and try to take away that fear a little bit and try to make it as user-friendly as possible. So a little bit about Icon. We are a fully integrated communication and engagement solution that provides connection among staff members, residents, and family members. We also provide robust reporting and analytics so that communities can continue to improve and get better. And we allow just enough customization so that each community can shine in their own unique way through our platform with consistency. So, and we have with us one of our best users and a local community that we've worked with for many years. So I'd like to introduce actually Emily Delaney, and she's our Director of Resident Experience at the Clare.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Mary and Julie, for inviting me and Beth, who everyone will meet in just a moment, to be a part of the webinar. We're really thrilled to be here. So my name is Emily Delaney. I'm the Resident Experience Director here at the Clare. We're located in downtown Chicago. I've been with the Clare for just over 8 years now in various capacities. And right now, part of my job is focused on communications with the residents in our independent living side of our building, which includes the use of Icon. And part of my job is also resident engagement and providing those services to our residents so that they can live a fulfilled life after they've moved into the community. Just a little bit about the Clare. We're in downtown Chicago, like I said. We are a continuing care retirement community, and that means we've got all levels of care, so independent living, assisted memory care, and skilled nursing and rehab. So we're thrilled to be here, and thanks again for inviting us.
Well, very, very glad you're here.
Thank you. We'll pass it off to Beth Mitchell, who is actually a resident of the Clare in independent living.
Our guest of honor.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you, Beth, if you want to share a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I've been here at the Clare for 2.5 years, so I'm a relative newbie here. Um, it's it was kind of an early decision for us. We're over 75, but still there are many who are far older than us. So it was a very interesting experience to see how some of them use technology or don't use technology. And I am the chair of the Marketing and Communications Committee for the Resident Advisory Council. So we work with Emily and with our marketing people very closely, and technology is what we're all about. So I am happy to be here to answer questions and to share our experiences.
Well, thank you all. And Beth, thank you so much being a resident in one of our communities, specifically the Clare Continuing Care Retirement Community. It's an honor to have you on.
Thank
So
you.
let's just kick it off and ask all of you from your perspective, how does resident technology impact the resident and family decision-making process while they're researching and deciding which community to move to? Mary, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's also one thing I wanted to mention is related to this question is I think there's two different answers because it's important to consider the current day versus the future state. So I think communities are getting prepared, if not already prepared, for the boomers to come in and expect some sort of technology. So I think it's today it is an important decision, and I think it's going to become more and more of an important decision and impact where they decide to go. So I think it's huge today, and it will continue to be.
That's a good point. When you say today and continue to be, I guess I'm jumping to assume that you mean that it's only growing, that
Yeah.
its importance and presence and prevalence.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly, exactly. So, I hear residents that are coming in today asking about what types of technology that there is in place, and or family members and loved ones that are asking the same thing. But I can see that becoming a larger need for that resident or for that loved one in years to come. So I think, like you said, it's just growing.
And Emily, what about your perspective?
Yeah, I think Mary hit on the baby boomer generation that is quickly approaching or has already approached the retirement age. And those people or that generation is looking for retirement communities. What's their next chapter in their life? And so I think that has to be a strong consideration in how some of the existing retirement communities are operating. I know from the Clare's perspective, we've been around for 15 years. And so our building is, it's not quite as old as some, but it's aging. And so as it ages, what are we doing to keep up with the generation that is seeking moving in here? And so I think a big part of that is technology. I know that during the sales process, a big thing that they cover is the technology that exists in our building, where we're going with it. And, obviously our relationship with Icon and us using their product comes into play as we talk about our resident portal and what that portal outlines. So I think that it's definitely an expectation, if not for the resident that's moving in, certainly their family members that are helping them make this big decision. So it's a definite point that we try to make.
And Beth, during your decision making or your shopping experience, your research, really curious what you and your husband were kind of looking for. I mean, and in what way did technology play into that decision?
Well, I think actually the Clare, it wasn't what we were looking to do right away. We were looking to get out of our house and we wanted to move into a condo downtown.
Okay.
But then we started talking about, well, do we really want to move twice? And when I saw the Clare, I think technology, the the technology that was demonstrated by the website and by my conversations with marketing was definitely a factor in moving here. I went on the website. I actually, they have a tool, an interactive tool where you can place your furniture in some of the floor plans. And I did that. And that made a decision because we were moving from a big house and I wanted to be sure that I could get the things that I loved into where we were going. That was technology right there. I could look and see, the different departments, and I could see that the dining was interesting and the pictures were great. And then when we started talking to marketing, they were talking about how internet was now considered part of the monthly fee. And then when we moved in, right away, they gave us a very nice jump in bandwidth in our apartment. I mean, it was really good. It was better than we had before. So I think they did a very good job of sucking us in, if you will, and making us a part of the community. And I will say we're not necessarily typical. We're on the younger side sometimes of some of the residents here. The older ones, however, some of them are not even online, but there aren't as many as I would expected, actually. And their families did research online to help to find a place for them, and then went to them and said, this is the place you want to go. So the technology is definitely an enhancement to the process.
You bring up something as what is now common or should be common is a website, right? And
yes.
What I'm hearing you say is that your experience just going on the website, interacting on the website,
yes.
Pictures, stories.
Yes.
I mentioned that interactive floor planner. That really made a difference for you?
Yes, and the reviews. I read the reviews. I didn't discover the blogs at that point, but I do know that some of the residents' children have spent quite a bit of time on the blogs, paying it, looking and seeing what was going on. Yeah. Also, so yes, those were definitely considerations.
83, well, it's about 83% now, the stat nationwide of people find us first, us meaning senior living, resident, in retirement living, online.
Yes.
And that's a stat that probably makes sense to you.
It does. I think the new people definitely have all been through the same experience that we have, the ones that I've talked to, and that are probably those who have come in the past 5 years or so. But that's not all of them. Some of them are even older people. And I have to tell you, the secretary of my marketing committee is about 90, and she takes notes on her computer almost faster than we can talk. So it's for everybody.
Absolutely. My stepfather's 92 years old. He is extremely tech savvy. I think we need to take the age, hopefully it's 2024. We need to start taking age out of the equation, and be sensitive, to be sensitive where someone is, where they are now and with where they may want to be. But that really, someone is X years old, they're not going to use tech or be intrigued by it, or that it matters. It's every day that goes by. I think that's a case less and less and less. So let me shift here. So we talked about attracting prospects and residents, and during that decision-making process, the sales process, from first impressions on the website all the way through to making that decision. Let's talk about resident engagement. So how, in other words, how does utilizing technology in this case and resident technology help with resident satisfaction, resident engagement, thus preventing dissatisfaction or even move outs?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to also understand your residents' or prospects' preference for how they want to interact with technology. Like you mentioned, you're going to have some residents that are in their 90s that are great with technology, but you're also going to have some residents that are in their 70s and 80s that are not comfortable with technology. And I think it's really important to partner with technology that caters to both of those needs. So, and making sure that we can identify those preferences so that if a resident who has low vision or is a little shaky, they probably can't use their mobile device to read a calendar of events. So, we need to get it up on a huge display and make sure that same event that's getting posted onto the resident portal is also showing on the digital display screen, or also being emailed to them, or a text message that's being sent to them. What are their preferences on how to receive information? Or is it still a printout? There is still a world where paper is important, but that can still come directly from the technology, and gathering the preferences of that resident is important. And then monitoring the resident and the family satisfaction and doing some pulse surveys out to them and getting feedback to catch any issues up front. Moving in is a those first 90 days or even first 30 days are extremely important to how a resident feels and whether or not they're going to continue. So, sending those pulse surveys to understand how they're feeling, how their loved one is feeling on the other side. Do they feel comfortable with what's been interacting? Do they feel like they're being well communicated with, and actioning those analytics that are provided by technology? So I think, the two takeaways from there are, one, gathering resident and family member preferences on how they want to receive these updates, and partnering with a vendor that can provide all of those different methods of communication. And then two, those reports, dashboards, analytics, being able to action those immediately to get feedback and to improve or retain residents moving forward.
Yeah, I would add to that. Thank you so much, Mary, that well, not even add, but agree how critically important feedback, engagement, surveys. If you're not doing surveys within right at the end of 30 days, please, that would absolutely be something you want to implement. There's the statistic about move-outs. So the majority of move-outs and notices happen within that first quarter, within the first 90 days. So that emphasizing the importance of being proactive and using technology during the sales process, during the decision-making, during the move-in process, during the virtual videos and communication tools so people know what to expect. And here's what's happening their first week, making sure that what really causes, among other things, but anxiety is not knowing what to expect. And it's so important. And ways to use technology to ease that, to help you all communicate from a sales perspective is critical. And then through that, strong move-in welcome and strong engagement into the community, and then ongoing, of course. Emily, what about you from your perspective as a engagement director?
Yeah, sure. So, I think that one of the things that we really try to do at the Clare is that when we know that someone is moving in, first of all, we have a move-in coordinator. So the fact that we obviously know that someone's moving in, the move-in coordinator, the sales team has been working with that person to get their apartment ready for their move-in date, right? But the move-in coordinator allows for the process to go smoothly. So they're working with that resident that's moving in to make sure their internet set up, their phone set up, all of these things, so that when they get into their unit, they're not scrambling or waiting for these people to show up from all these different companies to install cable. So I think that that's one really important piece of it. The other thing that we do on our end is we're making contact with that resident, if we haven't even already, before they move in, within the first few days that they move in, and we're getting them set up on our online resident portal through Icon. And so what that allows them to do is, at their leisure, without like any massive amounts of paper being thrown at them with like a resident handbook or a bunch of policies and procedures. They've got everything on that resident portal, from the dining menus to a list of what's going on for the day to a way to submit work orders for maintenance or IT or housekeeping. You've got a resident directory with all of your neighbors' information already uploaded, all of the contact numbers for the staff, everyone from an hourly staff member to a director. And so getting people on that portal as soon as possible is super important. And I think that the people who have embraced it and been excited to get on it have had better outcomes in the first 30, 60, 90 days that they've lived at the Clare, because they've got everything at their fingertips. So I think it's a huge piece of the orientation in our community. And then I also thought, we never had a director of IT before, of information technology before. And in the last year, it's become, not last year, last 3 years, I would say, it's become such a big topic of conversation in our community that we now have a director of IT that's in-house, that's dedicated to not only assisting the staff, but all of the residents as well, and making sure that we're up to speed with what we need to be to make sure the resident experience is great. So it's definitely something that I think speaks to the level of need for that in the community setting.
Yeah, I think the implementing all of getting them into the tool right away, implementing the workflows behind it for sending out surveys, or even on our communication side of our technology, we have where residents can still even call in to a number and get an update from there as well. So there's so much flexibility, but making sure that you have that workflow nailed down, like Emily said, from move-in all the way through those 90 days. And then what happens after that, making sure that's all scheduled through your technology and keeps you on point. And then monitoring those reports, those analytics to make decisions and continuously improve, I think is huge in preventing residents from moving out.
Beth, can you talk a little bit about your sort of initial move-in? I know it's 2.5 years ago, but that process and how that all helped you.
Yes, I can. I think two of the most important sources of information about life at the Clare are the resident advisory council meetings and also the town halls. Residents get paper notices as well as emails about it and texts about them, and it's posted in the refrigerator in the elevator, and everybody is invited to attend. New people might not be quite as, they might be reluctant to go, or often they do go, and that's a good way to learn. But if they haven't gone, all of those are recorded and they are uploaded to YouTube, and it goes through our portal. And so anybody can look and really see what is going on here. And it's a beginning of engagement for many, I think. It certainly was for us. And also the resident directory, which Emily mentioned, it has pictures. That is wonderful, because you see people that they introduce themselves to you and you have no idea what their name is afterwards. So you can look online and you can find the picture and you think, oh yes, that's the name. I love that thing. I still use it all the time because I'm very bad with names.
That's
It's also a very good way if you want to connect with somebody, to have dinner with them, to get their phone number, and you can make the reservations right online at the venue, the dining venue of your choice. So all those things, I mean, socializing over meals is a big thing here. And this technology makes it much easier than it would be otherwise.
How often have you raised your hand to need to call for help in any of the technology, or even during your onboarding process, type of help to either figure something out or learn how to do something or communicate? How often did you need to do that, or do you need to do that now?
Actually, I don't think I've had to, but I do know other people who've had to, and
Mm-hmm.
especially setting up their accounts
Mm-hmm.
so that they can get in and having directions for how to get into the Clare portal. So
Got it.
I
Yeah.
mean, it kind of came. Both my husband and I have always been on computers from the very beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was easier for us than it is for some.
Uh-huh.
But the technology department is very supportive, and I mean, just as another example, they have Bluetooth connections for. This is not for the Icon system, but Bluetooth connections for hearing aids for rooms where there are meetings or where there are shows and that kind of thing. I mean, there's technology everywhere here. And I will also say this community is very, very forward in terms of saving the environment. So people are always giving ideas to us for saving paper. And this is the first year that the resident handbook, after its revisions, it's revised each year, has been posted online mainly, and you have to ask if you want a paper one. And the resident handbook is a source of huge information. And that's a very good thing for new people also. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, to your point, that the specific technology of Icon and that resident communication and engagement portal for families as well, there's which is critically important. We've got to communicate, right? At every, that's how we're human, right? We've got to know. There's so many ways and so many. I mean, there's something as simple as your Wi-Fi connection. That's technology. Paperless move-ins. Technology, moving away from paper. Being able to register, for meals or maybe for transportation, or that way through technology. Certainly from a wellness side, for those of you even in assisted living, memory care, for wellness and documentation, there's a lot of technology behind that, and certainly a lot of technology from the sort of that back end. But we're talking about forward facing. There's a lot of um, areas, right, in which technology can support and enhance resident experience, and the simple use of like surveys, right, and eliciting feedback. And someone wrote in the thank you, Heidi, feedback is a gift. It is. Feedback is a gift. And, even if it's something that's not glowing, maybe especially when it's not something that's not glowing. So you're able to have that opportunity to fix an issue before it becomes a big problem and someone's unhappy. So
Yeah,
give it.
we always try from Icon to even have communities lean into even the negative feedback, if there is any, right? Don't be scared of it. Take it on, and guiding them through the best practices, and we have a little toolkit for our communities to walk through on, like, okay, if you get a detracting score, what is your next step? What should you do next? Right. And the whole idea is not that we want to turn that detractor into a promoter. And how do you do that? But the first step is getting that feedback so that and then you have the opportunity to make the changes, improve. And then the next thing you know, you're getting all promoters. That's the best case scenario there.
I mean, to have evangelists,
Mm-hmm.
in your community, as well as the surrounding community. You've got residents, friends, family,
Yes.
associates talking about you in a positive light and its use of technology, or wow, they really made this process so much easier, or oh wow, researching options was just so much more enhanced. It helped us. Beth, you mentioned you and your husband were talking about moving to a condo. You got down this path and you're like, this is probably the best decision moving forward. Music to our ears, reaching people sooner rather than later from that tech side. There's just so many opportunities. So for takeaways, for those listening and those watching recording, I'm going to go around and pick your all's brain, some of the best practices for implementing technology to enhance occupancy? Emily, what do you think?
Well, I think that the team that's walking or touring around new prospects or potential move-ins, I mean, we have to be open to feedback and suggestions. So similarly to what Mary just said, I think that it's super important not only to hear the positives, but then also the negatives, and then how are we going to change or what action plan do we have to put in place to hear that feedback, and if it's viable, turn it into something that the community is doing. So I think that being very open-minded and listening to what the residents need. Not everyone learns in the same way. And so we have to keep some of the older pieces, like print copies of things. But if we are looking to the future and looking to what the future residents of our community might look like, I think that those are people that are very tech savvy, who have kept up with the newest and latest technology, and that's their expectation. So I think we've got to keep the forward momentum and also, keep listening to feedback.
That's a great point. Differentiators, why here? Why us?
Mm-hmm.
And first learning, asking questions, learn what's important to your customer, what's important to your prospect, what's important to your families, and highlight, certainly highlight, elicit feedback, definitely. I would add that sharing success stories or sharing stories about residents in your community, how they're using technology. What if you all had a Beth in your community as an evangelist to show how living in your community enhances your life using the technology available at the community, how that enhances overall satisfaction, communication, ties to family and loved ones, and inter-community communication. That's where you want to shout that out, on social media and your all of your messaging. Beth, what about you?
I would say the sharing of experiences online is a big thing, I think. And I talked about the meetings, but there's one particular thing that comes to mind, and that is the Clare sends a team to dragon boat races in Chinatown every year. This is a very, very popular activity. And the volunteers undergo training actually by our fitness leaders to get them in shape for it. And we get bussed down, and residents go down to the cheering sections and everything. And we come last every time, of course, because we're old. But we come in first in our age category. And
hey, that's
yes. And they do a very nice video of it. And this is the most popular residents advisory committee meeting that we have every year, because people come to see the video, but it also gets posted on YouTube so that people can watch. And so families can see it. And I think for families, this must be very rewarding to see that their parents are living in a place that would do something as interesting as dragon boat races. So that's the kind of thing I think that can really be good for keeping people interested and engaged in the Clare, and it will encourage the families to be very positive with their parents that they've made the right decision.
Yeah, sure. What a great point. And if you don't have a YouTube channel, suggestion to get a YouTube channel. And also, I know there's been a lot of back and forth about TikTok. If you don't have a TikTok, I would highly recommend it. But is it valuable in the sales process or lead generation? Maybe, probably, but especially for resident engagement, what's happening at your community. I know I follow several senior living communities, and one in particular, memory care, and on TikTok. And I've never been there. But the feeling I get from this one memory care community from TikTok, and they have residents on talking and their team members, it's just the best feeling in the world from that community. So a sidebar on social media, TikTok, YouTube. Mary, what about you?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One is I'm a really big fan of educating the residents. Don't, you know, especially the ones that might be a little nervous about technology, because obviously it's not going anywhere. You know, even as we're entering into this AI world, which can be very scary, you know, I've had quite a bit of experience working with residents talking about Alexa devices or and then AI and the more you educate your residents on the technology and on AI, the more comfortable they're going to be because they understand it and they get it. So take the time to do that. And I also would say, gather the Beths of your community and build a resident user committee for the technology that you're adopting within your community and allow the other residents to buddy up and meet with the residents that are just learning and educate them as well. So that's also something we've adopted at Icon in our implementation process is if a community that we're engaging with and partnering with, if they don't have this resident tech committee or resident user group, that we will walk them through how to create one. And even on this committee, I would say you can have your less tech savvy users on there too, because you want them to be
Yep.
evangelists for you to say, "Ah, I used to be scared of this too, but let me tell you what helped me and how I learned." And then I also think it's really important to right now with AI and there's all these scams and things out there. So you want to continue to educate just for that purpose alone. I mean, community aside, you want to make sure that the seniors and the residents are protected and from some of that and educated on, you know, what is and what isn't and how to identify that. But yeah, with any technology that you're implementing within your community, you know, educate, educate, educate. And that resident user committee is huge, is huge.
Well, I'd like to thank you all so much for all of your input and knowledge and experiences. Thank you, Beth. Opening it up to questions, I did have a couple here that have popped up. And any of you want to jump in? We've got one question. It says, and I think you touched on it a bit, but what if you have residents who are resistant to technology?
Well, I think we see that quite a bit at the Clare. Sorry if I can jump in. You know, as Beth pointed out, her and her husband are they made a decision a little bit earlier than some of our other residents, and so they're therefore a little younger. And they're very tech savvy, but there are some residents that don't quite grasp it as well as someone like Beth or her husband. And I think that there's a part of them that just they since tech has been around, they haven't kept up to date with it. And so, yes, there is an education piece to it. Again, why we have a director of IT now instead of just a manager, because there needs to be that heavier focus on tech in the community. We have implemented things or sessions where residents can come and they can either get help from a staff member like myself, or we've had Beth there and they can get help from a resident. So if they want more peer-to-peer support, they can get that. If they want someone from the staff, they can get that as well. We have IT office hours where 2 times a week, we've got people, a whole hour dedicated to walk-ins for our tech team and what can they help with. And it could be something as simple as I need help with this thing on my computer, or my iPhone won't turn on, or I can't get out of this app, whatever it might be. But I think that really speaks to the need or the focus of continuing to educate on IT and continuing to, even though they might not be grasping it as well, continue to push it forward so that they can learn.
We also are seeing a lot of use of Apple Watches. And Apple Watches can be excellent in an emergency. So it is something that family members can encourage from that standpoint, but it may lead to other things where family members then can send texts to their parents and that kind of thing. There have been a couple instances where residents were out walking on the streets and fell, and they were able to get help because they had their Apple Watches on. So
Good point.
That's a very interesting one. And there are a lot of people who are not really what I would call tech people who are wearing
Right.
Apple Watches.
Right.
And as a result, they have access to everything.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's
a
a
really
great
good
point.
point.
And we say tech, oh, but the tech is all around us. If you have a if you have a Fitbit or a virtual watch or Apple Watch, it's a great, great point. Mary, what about you? Any thoughts there?
I mean, I think Emily and Beth both hit on it really well. And I think those preferences are really important, capturing that. Don't force a resident that's not comfortable into something they're not ready for. I remember I talking with somebody, they were like, oh, well, half of our residents have iPads, so I assume all of them will adopt the technology. And I was like, that's not, that you want to go based on their preference. How do they prefer to receive communication? And document that so that when you send something out, it's going to go out to all those different methods based on your resident or your family's preferences. So I think, but for residents that are, not as comfortable, I think that's a great item to capture right at move-in is their preference.
Yeah, and what's more frustrating than having a tech issue or your phone doesn't turn on and you want to throw it out I know I want to throw it out the window, or my computer says something that pops up at me and I'm like, I don't know what that is, after X number of years using I want to throw it out the window. So it's repetition, having someone available, little bits, doing it in little bits. I love that, having a peer. Another thought is, what about when you're doing outreach for all you sales folks out there and EDs, and you meet up with a community member, an influencer that's their passion? What about volunteering in the community at their, at their timeline to volunteer to help with any questions or any struggles or frustrations around whatever technology issues they might have. We've got time for one last question. We did have one comment. Could you use tech virtually for prospects to participate in an activity? Absolutely. That I think that's great from the sales process for engaging someone who's not yet at your community. Thank you so much. Last question, speed round. Okay, so this is maybe specific certainly to Icon, but all other tech. How much training is involved with onboarding tech? I would say it does depend on what we're talking about. And again, it can go for everything from an Apple Watch to having an iPhone or a mobile phone to internet, Wi-Fi, all of that. But maybe speaking specifically for Icon, how much training is involved? What would you say, Mir?
So I think the way that we approach any partners, any communities that join Icon, we really take a consultative approach right at the beginning from our sales process. And then as soon as you sign on with Icon, we like to work with you on where are the current challenges today and where are you really trying to streamline and focus in on. And that allows us to build a training model that fits in with exactly where you want to make impact within your community. And with that being said, our solution is very user-friendly. Beth kind of mentioned that as she was going through, I can just go here, create dining reservations, and we're continuously enhancing our product to make it even more user-friendly, making recommendations so you don't even have to, lift a finger in terms of what events do I want, but otherwise, I think as we go through training, we're focusing on best practices. How do staff members mold it into their day to add announcements? What types of announcements? Letting them to think of different ways that they can, implement the technology into their day, adding it to their responsibilities. And then for residents, kind of the same idea, just best practices for them logging in. How do you want them to sign up for events? What are the dimensions of wellness that you want those residents to be focusing on and pulling reports on those? So the training involved really depends, like you said, on different products, but I think that the best way to think about it is best practices and making sure it aligns with the goals that you've set out to achieve, and building that ROI for your community and what you consider successful and why you adopted the technology. So I hope that answers a little bit. I can't really give a timeline or anything because it would be
Right.
a
It's
little,
because my advice would be in training and something like this, or even if you're adopting a new CRM, little bits at a time, little bits at a
yes.
time. Because you can do even sales training. Do
Mhm.
a day of sales training is great content, but I know when you walk away, people will walk away with about 20% of that, which is why that repetition and that coaching and that support and that ongoing as each individual absorbs and implements what's most important or meaningful for them.
Yeah.
So thank
Yes, I agree.
you. Take this minute here to thank very much Beth, Emily, Mary for joining me on this beautiful March afternoon, the Grow Your Occupancy podcast. Appreciate you all so much and helping us maybe bring down the wall just a little bit from the tech side and how really it's our friend and our support. It is the today and the future of life and certainly in resident engagement and life in a community. If you'd like to learn more about Icon, there will be some information sent to you with the recording, the link to the recording. If you'd like to learn more about us, you know where to find us because you're here listening to this. We have 2 sales workshops coming up both in California. We have Southern California and Northern California April and May. They're on our website. Would love to have you join our small groups, interactive, powerful. As always, thank you so much for your collaboration. If you like, subscribe, tell a friend. We certainly appreciate so other people in our industry have the support of people like Mary, Emily, Beth, and all of you, and making the world of senior living better, one resident at a time. Thank you all again so very much.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.